So I'm Chris Hunsaker. I'm CEO and co-founder of Acuitus Ag. I was raised on a sugar beet and wheat farm in southern Idaho, 8,000 acre farm, and then professionally I've spent over 20 years inside the ag industry. 18 of that was as CEO of an ag machinery manufacturer in the potato space called Double L. Acuitus Ag is primarily a software company that is providing software related tools to farms, OEMs, and supply chain partners downstream of the farm like processors and pack sheds. So I participated in FEMA when I was at the machinery manufacturer, and it had been 4 or 5 years since I'd been to a meeting. We started Acuitus, and it became apparent that we needed to start to engage with the OEMs to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, to be able to help the farm out. So I came back, and there was a technology council, and I went to that meeting and spent most of the time talking based on the topics that came up. And so I actually left the machinery space because I was frustrated with the value proposition on equipment. I felt like we were just doing the same thing over and over again, making it bigger or dressing it up and expecting the farm to shell out tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy it. And growing up on a farm, I just felt like we were not solving the problem very well. And that was frustrating to me. And we tried to do some things inside of the machinery business to change that, and that was a difficult proposition. When I came back to the FEMA meeting and kind of saw what the temperature was and where people's minds were at, they were concerned about automation and autonomy, and they were concerned about what their place in that future was, and that was kind of the gist of that first discussion. And so out of that, a couple of other tech companies have also shown up of their own accord. It wasn't coordinated, but we see things in a very similar way, and we have an interest in trying to engage with the OEMs to help them see a path forward here that allows them to continue to do what they do very well, which is solve problems for the farm, but also be able to innovate with the new technology that is coming down the pipeline. So I'll start with the manufacturers first. The point that I wanted to get across is that there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen in the design of the machines and the controls on the machine from software-enabled hardware, which is what industrial and off-road equipment and all of this stuff has kind of naturally evolved to over time, and changing that to hardware-enabled software as a design paradigm. And what happens when you do that is you look at the problem you're trying to solve and you come up with very different solutions. The benefit of software is that it's highly flexible. So if you don't like what you just did, you can update it tomorrow and do it again and do it again and do it again, and the marginal cost of making those changes is very low. That's kind of a different worldview for a machinery manufacturer who's used to prototyping over the course of months and years to create the next innovation in the machinery. And so merging these two things and helping someone who's really focused on creating the physical thing that does the job, getting them to think, well, how can I use software to enhance that, or to be the main lens that I view the design through, to be able to innovate. We wanted to get that across, that's a paradigm shift that should happen, and the reason is because of all of this stuff that's happening with AI and self-driving vehicles, autonomy, and the tools that are being used there really require an ecosystem that is integrated fully into the machines that is driven by software in order to be able to use those tools effectively. And so coming from the background that I did on the farm and in the machinery business, like I would love to see the implement manufacturers be able to continue going forward, not be disrupted by some outside thing that comes in. And so that's the main message to get across to the manufacturers, is that there's a place to start. It's not expensive. There are little things that can be done to start down the path from wherever they're at. There's not There's no line in the sand that they have to cross first in order to get going. I wanted to get them thinking about that. And then in the case of distributors, I think what this whole systems approach to solving the problem is revealing is that there's aligned incentives in the supply chain to get information or use technology in a way that serves everyone's purposes. So distributors can support the farm better if some of these tech tools are present on the machines, and distributors may be able to create value-add services off of that technology that improve the experience for their own customers. And it's different than selling a product in some ways. You might be selling a service, but it's reasonable to develop and actually quite simple. And if the machine already has the capability of delivering the data remotely from the machine, then you can create these services on top of it, and that aligns incentives better between the manufacturers and their distributors to actually solve the problem of the farm. The use of cameras to be able to see what's going on, this is another design paradigm where the idea in the tech world is if you can see it with your eyes, you can train a computer to see it with a camera. And so when you think about automating the machines, you think about, well, how's the machine operated now? You have a person in a seat looking at what's going on, making adjustments to the machine. Well, a few $100s worth of cameras and a GPU and some AI models can be trained in a relatively straightforward way to do the same thing. And if you need an example of this, go schedule a test drive of a Tesla, leave the politics part of it aside, but just go have that car drive itself for you and see what you come away thinking about that whole process, because that car is only using cameras and a processor to do that. There's no radar, there's no ultrasonic sensors, there's no hyper-accurate GPS that's going into that. So if that is able to be translated over into ag, then I think that you get to a spot in autonomy where it comes faster maybe than what you would have expected otherwise. Outside of that, I think that the best way forward, and this is another reason for being here at FEMA, is that this is an iterative approach, that the members of FEMA have the information already in their knowledge to be able to know how to create the automation. And it might happen in a step-by-step approach. It won't just be that all of a sudden one day we show up and we have an automated machine. That may happen in some specific use cases, and we saw that with the Verdant Robotics presentation today. But in the vast majority of cases, I think it'll be a step-by-step approach, and I think the farm will prefer that because they'll be able to understand it better. It's not such a wholesale change that they can't get their minds around it. So I think that you're just going to see iteratively more and more automation being introduced over time, and in 5 years I think we'll be surprised at where we're at.